What's up? Jubilant. It's a new week. Hope things are going well. Things could be going better, but let's just keep going on. So I read some Game of Thrones as usual. In this chapter, King Robert finds out that Daenerys is alive and is with child, and Robert is all about killing all the Targaryens he can find. And so he's like, it's time to kill women and children. And Ned won't have it. He doesn't find it being worth his while or even being even a thing to do. Something like that should be off the table. He gives the line something akin to like, the whole reason why we fought the Targaryens was to stop, women and children from having to die. But no, Robert he won't stay his fury and his bloodlust. So after some voting around the table, which is pointless anyways, Robert wants to do whatever he wants. Ned resigns from being the hand of the king. And Robert's furious, but who cares? Let him be mad. And they're gonna replace him. And Ned doesn't care, he just wants to go home. He's done with all this stuff. And so he goes back, tells his men that they're leaving. They should probably leave as quick as possible. And that the royal family, basically him and his daughters, are just going to leave now as quick as possible, and that, they're to follow. But the ones who are in danger the most are the Starks. And so as he's pondering, maybe he'll take a ship or whatever, and go visit some guy that's been missing for the whole story. Littlefinger shows up and tempts him with some more information on a certain brothel. Yeah, this is a little bit more of the political stuff. It's like 80-70 to like 20-80. Mostly political stuff. That's the groundwork is being set up for what's going to happen. I'm sure the later half of the book. I'm a good halfway through, I believe. Yeah. So I'm sure this is just going to be kindles for the fire of the second part of the book, just laying the groundwork. Yeah, this is mostly just fantasy. This is mostly just medieval policy, political stuff with a murder mystery in the background. The fantasy stuff so far is just dressing. Besides the wolves, which have come and gone for most of the story. And then the omen stuff, I guess you could consider that. The prophecy stuff with Bran. Yeah, no, okay. It's mostly mystery and medieval stuff with no fantasy in it so far. Or very little, I should say. But I'm having fun. It's good. I don't mind it being mostly mystery and medieval dressing. I wish it was more mystery whenever the political stuff starts being set up, but you need both if you're gonna have a good mystery. So yeah, I'm having a good enough time. Hold on, let's do that. Let's switch that up. Yeah. Book 23 of the Iliad. Almost done. Almost done with the Iliad. In this chapter, we cremate Patrolus. Hector gets thrown in front of this big, pyre, because they have the funeral for Patrolus. And Achilles is like, oh, let the dogs eat Hector and let him rot. Before I did my thing. I told you I was going to do Patrolus. And so he makes sacrifices of people, some Trojans, some dogs. I'm sure just a big mess for them as they light him on fire. And yet the dogs don't go and nibble or peck at Hector, as the gods keep him safe. Venus, I believe. And so that's a little sneer at Achilles. Yeah, and then he's like, oh, you should put my ashes in with Patrolus's when I'm dead. Like, okay, dude, you're really about that life. You're really Achilles is really just crazy. He's just gone mad with emotion. But I mean, whatever. You want to be romantic like that, go ahead. And then they pour wine and put the fires out, and then put the cremated ashes into an urn for later use. And then there's funeral games. And so some people, I'm sure this is pretty cool. We get something of a break between, all the war. But I'm just like, nah, I can't cheer for these people. I don't care who's a better boxer or who can shoot a dove with an arrow. No, be done with it. Have your little games, your little funeral things, and give out your give out your treasure that you plundered to these people and be done with it already. For some people, I'm sure this is like superheroes. Like, oh, what if there's a sports festival with your favorite superheroes, Odysseus the wise and Ajax the mighty, and look, even Agamemnon can try to get in, but then they say, well, you're the king, so you're just winning automatically. Nah, this is lame. Whatever. I don't care about your funeral games, dude. Who cares? But I'm at least one book away. This is the penultimate chapter. Uno más, and then we're out of here. I'm going to move on to the Odyssey. In the Bible, the Holy Bible, chapters 18 and 19 of Genesis. In 18, we see the angels show up, and Abraham rushes out and beckons them into his little tent and trees and stuff, and asks them to take a break and that they should find some comfort with him in his tent. Okay, the angels kind of are a little bit not sure at first, but then they relent and they go and they take a break with them. And so while they're having the break and they're having basically a tea time, the angels are like, okay, so Abraham, it's when next time you see us, your wife's gonna be pregnant, you guys are gonna be having a kid. And the wife overhears them. Sarah laughs at that and is like, sure, yeah, an old lady like me and an old man like him are gonna have children. And the Lord hears her kind of mocking and laughing about it, and is like, do you doubt the Lord? And then she's full of fear and is like, oh no, I'm sorry, I didn't laugh at it. I didn't laugh at you. And it's like, you're really gonna lie to God? Okay. And so God is like, okay, you lied, but whatever, you're afraid. You say you're afraid, but you did laugh. So I'm like, oh, well, God's going to be vindictive, man. I don't know what, I've already forgotten how he's going to have his vengeance, but he's going to do something to Sarah. Maybe through Isaac. Mm-hmm. And so then that's pretty much that chapter. The next chapter, no, wait, in 18 is the final part of 18 is when they're going to go, the angels are going to Sodom to go destroy it. And Abraham haggles with God and is like, if you find so many people, righteous people, would you really kill all the righteous with the wicked? And God relents and is like, no, all right, I'll spare Sodom if you find so many righteous people. And Abraham haggles him down to 10 people before God just gets up and goes. And so, can we find 10 righteous people in a whole entire city? Let's find out. Next chapter. No, we can't. No, we can't. So the angels show up to Sodom, and Lot is there at the entrance of town, and he ushers them into his house after begging them, multiple times. Come on, angel people, come to my place. I can't be out here at night. No, you don't want to stay out here at night. Come to my place. And so eventually he gets them under the roof. And at nighttime, then it's weird because the chapter says all of the men of the city, and then all the men of Sodom, like everybody, every single person. Okay, I guess that's the only way we can get around the counting of 10 people, 10 righteous people. The women, who cares? 10, all men, all the men And so they show up, and they want the angels, they want the strangers and the sojourners. And I'm like, okay, this kind of sounds like it, like it's inferred, but it's not being straight up said. At least I don't understand it as straight up being just like these guys are perverted, disgusting people that have disgusting intent with these men, if you know what I mean. And so the people want the strangers, they want the angels, and Lot comes out and he does the thing that you do, when there's a bunch of wicked, violent people outside your doors, you go out there and you say, have my daughters instead. Okay, Lot, what? That's how we treat women. That's how we treat, daughters. And the men of Sodom were like, no, we want those guys. And then the angels strike them blind and tell Lot, hey, look, tell your people that they need to leave. We're destroying Sodom. So that's that. And he's like, oh, okay, let me go tell my people. So he tells the son-in-laws, and the son-in-laws are like, what's this crazy old man talking about? So apparently they must have been blind as well, because all the men showed up, right? Like, okay. And then they leave Sodom, and they being Lot, his two daughters, and his wife. And the angels tell them, don't look back. Don't look back. Superhero action movie time. When you leave, don't look back. And the wife looks back because, they don't listen, I guess. I don't know. She just really loves it all or something. She doesn't believe in the Lord, something. And so she turns into a pillar of salt because that's what you do. That's what you do to people. Fire and brimstone? No, it's pillar of salt for you. Bam, made them with the magic. And so they leave, and they had Lot had told the angels if it was cool for them to go to a little town instead of the mountains, as the angels told them to go. And they were like, whatever, man, just go. And so they go to the little town, and they hear about what happened to Sodom, and they're scared. They're like, well, man, we better go to the mountains. That's what they told us to, so let's go to the mountains. And so they head on to the mountains, and then the daughters of Lot decided, you know what, this is the end of our bloodline. This is it. There's no other men in our bloodline. Mom's dead. So what should we do? Let's get pregnant and continue the bloodline. What? And so they get Lot pregnant, and they get Lot drunk, and they get themselves pregnant. And they go and are the descendants of some tribes from the area. And to me, this is just some like political malpractice. This is some tribal, mudflinging to be like, hi, you guys are incestuous Lot. Okay, whatever. Incestuous Lot. Okay. And then Abraham hears about what happened, and he's just like, oh dang. That's a smoldering ruin. All right. Well, that's Genesis 18 and 19. Yep. See you tomorrow. Yo, what's up? It's a Tuesday. And I've been thinking about this project a little bit. Maybe some changes come into the future. We'll see. But for right now, Game of Thrones. Caitlyn chapter. They finally make it to the Vale, which is Caitlyn's place, I think. When she grew up, maybe something adjacent to it, because it feels kind of like foreign in a way. But yet, this is where her sister's from. So, well, the sister's moved over here ever since her husband was maybe assassinated. And things are kind of strange. People are kind of not really, they're kind of beating around the bush and telling Caitlyn that, maybe she carries hope that won't actually bear fruit. How Tyrion is in this chapter, it really feels like he's got one up on her. He's supposed to be the prisoner, but he's over here, not bound, talking around however he wants, has an axe at his hip, where he's got an axe and his dirk, and no, this looks like it's gotten off the rails for Caitlyn. But they make it, And then they're separated as they go up. As Caitlyn goes up to go see her sister, it's not looking good. Not looking good for Caitlyn and maybe even for Tyrion. We'll see how he gets out of this mess, but he's most likely getting out of this mess. Then we get to see just how crazy, I guess, how filled with grief and lost in her anguish and lost in her paranoia. Caitlyn's sister, I think Lynn or something like that. Yeah, it's not good. And her child that she had with the previous hand of the king. No, no, this kid is not doing well. He's not being raised in any kind of healthy environment. So, yeah, no, no, this is another setup chapter. I'm sure we're gonna get more payoff for the things that happen here, but it was a longer chapter for all the setup, and the action was pretty much just that. That's all that really happened. Some people were introduced, relatives, uncles, stuff like that. Yeah. In the Iliad, book 24. This is the end of the Iliad. And yeah, after the funeral games and all that stuff, yeah, the gods are starting to kind of pity Hector and kind of are tired with Achilles just being driven mad with emotions still. Like, yeah, Patroclus is dead. Patroclus, that guy. And people die, Achilles. And sure, you're entitled to your grief, but don't expect people to feel pity for you for that grief. Not after all this. Not when they have their own tears to weep. So no, the gods are kind of tired of this already, and how he treats Hector's body. It's not good for him. Him being Achilles. It's not good for the people of Troy or Greek, the Chians. And so basically, besides Poseidon, Athena, and Hera, who just are that petty and that angry with the Trojans, all the gods kind of agreed that, okay, it's time to be done with this chapter of what's happening on Earth. And so Zeus goes and gets Iris, and Iris is told to go and talk to Achilles' mother and have her tell him to basically give up Hector, give up this thing. And that Zeus basically is telling him to do it. And then to go and talk to Priam, I think that's the name, the king of the Trojans, and tell him, hey, all right, we're ready to go get a bunch of loot, a bunch of stuff, and ransom off Hector from Achilles. Don't worry, he'll make it. Go in there and get him. So we have, some more stuff here and there, little anecdotes of those little stories, little vignettes of like, oh, and then the part where the golden apple and Aphrodite with Paris. Okay, that's the little bit of story we get of why Helen of Troy is Helen of Troy. And then you have parts where King Prom has to go and basically convince everybody that he's gonna go do this stuff. And he has to like pray to Zeus to show signs to his wife, and the kids are kind of like, they're worthless. They're not as good as Hector or these other kids that have died already. And so, yeah, no, Pram takes off with the loot and somebody to help him with the chariot. And then halfway there, Hermes shows up and he takes over, and they have a conversation about parentage and if people are trustworthy or whatever. And then Hermes basically gets everything out of the way, all the Trojans and the heavy obstacles that are barring doors and stuff. And he gets to Achilles, and he makes a plea to Achilles, who supplicates himself, I guess. which is a common thing here where you grab their knees and you basically beg them to, show you some kind of mercy or pity. And Achilles is already like, yeah, okay, I already heard that I have to do this, so let's just do this here. Like, get out of here. I'm not in the mood to see you and Hector. So like I won't see you, weep in front of me with Hector here. But like, okay, give me the ransom and I'll give you back Hector's body. And there's some good symbology here and some stuff that happens. Pretty much, uh, he treats Prom with some reverence because of family and the respect that you should show your elders and people like that, like fathers, even if they're not your father. A good father is still a good father. Should show them some dignity, at least when it comes to, like, I guess, the body of Hector, right? The children that you've slain of them. Sloan? Yeah, it's weird. I don't really. I guess it's a thing to show, like, mercy in this case, even though Achilles is the guy who killed Hector. So it's a weird tone. I don't know the message here, but I guess it's a symbol of mercy and forgiveness. Um, then the King Prom stays there for like the night, and then Hermes wakes him up and says like, "Hey, we got to go, otherwise it's not going to go well for you, old man." And so King Prom takes him back, and Achilles had promised to give them, however long it takes to give Hector his funeral rites. So they bury Hector, and that's the end of the book. Yeah, everybody comes out and gets to do the little parts, Cassandra and stuff. They bury Hector. That's like the last line. And Hector, a tamer of horses, was buried. And so, like, yeah, that's the end. Did I like it on the second reread? Yeah, certain parts I actually found the parts that I liked, which is mostly Achilles lines. When Achilles rebukes Odysseus, who comes in and tries to, have him accept the bribe. But yeah, those were pretty good parts. Anything that had to do with, and I guess there's symbology there with like the funeral games, but anything that had to do with the funeral games, nah, I don't care about how the superhero could throw this lance or who could, wrestle who and who got knocked out. By this point, I was kind of tired of the action of, war. It's kind of like, even though it's, tragic and all this, it's still kind of the same actions that are going on. And then, I mean, it's a story about war and the sacking of Troy. So, and I think if I had to pick a hero in this story about heroics and larger than life characters who can lift mighty rocks that no man from today's age could lift, it has to be Hector. Hector is my favorite character in the story. I mean, it ends when they bury him. The last lines have to do with burying him. And so it's like, if there was anybody that, you want to be an inspiration to your children in the story for these times, it has to be Hector. Because everybody else kind of skirks or kind of, picks something else besides honor when the choice is there. Even if there's omens and prophecies and, you have to weigh the odds or whatever, you pick honor to yourself and honor to your people and honor to the responsibilities that are laid upon you. That's the manly thing to do, is to, struggle with your burdens. And it doesn't matter if there's red flags, death flags, or any other kind of flags placed between you and what you're supposed to do. That's what you do. You choose that path, and not the path of rage like Achilles, or the path of greed and pride like Agamemnon, and even the path that other characters pick, like Odysseus, with his cleverness, sure, but still sometimes he's not honorable, right? Like, killing that kid that went to go spy, that wasn't very honorable. Or maybe it was. I mean, what? How can these people define honor when they're going this way and that way? And I don't think there's a single Greek character, any kind of a Chian in here at all, that is honorable at all. At least not compared to Hector. And so, yeah, at the end, the book kind of pulls it off. But maybe I didn't understand it. I'll always, that's always going to be a option for me, and it's worth another reread. It's worth listening to other people's opinions. But this is my second time reading the Iliad, and yeah, I'm sure it won't be the last. I still want to read some other translations, hear other people's opinions. There's still some stuff that I haven't looked up yet, like Vulcan making the armor and the visions and stuff that are going on in there. And then there's certain things that aren't in the book, right? Like the Trojan horse and stuff like that. And the stuff that happens with Ajax and the other characters in here that I'm sure, I'll find in somewhere else. I'll find them in another story, another book, unless it's a lost kind of thing, because these are ancient stories. Definitely ancient. But yeah, next, after this, it's going to be the Odyssey, which is still in this mess. Yeah, get the Odyssey. Keep forgetting that this is how I want to do this now. Anyways, I read Genesis 20 and 21. Genesis 20 has to do with, what do you have to do with Genesis 20? So chapter 20 has to do with Abraham and Sarah moving around still, and they end up basically doing the same gimmick. I knew I heard this part happen another time, where Abraham will say that Sarah's his sister, and then they'll let some king marry her, which, like, she's supposed to be old now. So why are we selling off or letting somebody else marry your old sister? Weird that this happens again. It feels like it's out of place in the timeline, but that's what happens. And then God comes to the king of Gerar or whatever, Gerar, and he's like, "Hey man, you married someone's wife, so I'm gonna curse you, and your bloodline's gonna end." And he's like, "Whoa, God, I didn't have anything to do with this. I didn't know. They lied to me. I didn't do anything wrong. If I knew, what I know, then I wouldn't do what I did." And God's like, "Yeah, I knew all that. I did all this. I planned it all out." So instead, that's why, you haven't besmirched her yet, or whatever, however he says it. You haven't, laid with her yet. So go and give them stuff and then be done with it. Send them away. And it's like, okay, maybe not that part. But, and so, God comes to them in a dream and tells them, "Hey, you do this, you married someone's wife, and you're going to have to be cursed." And the king's like, "Yo, I didn't do any of that." And so the king goes and talks to Abraham, and he's like, "Hey, why did he tell me that she was your sister and she's your wife? And you did me wrong with this, but here's a bunch of stuff, and be on your way," kind of thing. Abraham is a crook. He's totally a scammer, and he's leading people on with his sister, which is in fact his sister, half sister, which is gross, but she's also his wife. And it's the wife part that's wrong. These people are weird, man. They're anything to save the bloodline, anything for the bloodline, huh? So now, the stuff that we saw with Lot and his daughters, it's like, what are we doing back in these days, man? Nah. And these guys are supposed to be like the father of nations and prophets, good rebuke, no. And then Genesis 21, we find out that Sarah is pregnant with Isaac. And it's like, really? She got pregnant after that last marriage attempt thing, and the king didn't do anything to her? Mm, okay. Whatever you say, book. That's the way it went down. Okay. Sure. This lady just got pregnant after that close encounter. Sure. And then now that Sarah's pregnant, the old maid and the child that she has with Abraham, they gotta go. Get them out of here. They just don't rub they don't rub Sarah the right way anymore, like at all. Like, you gotta get her out of here. And Abraham doesn't like it. I mean, that's his son still. So at least Abraham loves his family at least that much. Or maybe he just loves the idea of a bloodline that much. That's what they're really attached to. And then they like send him out, and he gives them water and food for so many days, for maybe a day. Then they're out there trying to survive the wilderness, and then you get some like really sad depiction of like the child just being left in a bush, and the maid just like, you know, abandoning her kid. And then an angel shows up and saves them, and then it's like, okay, then don't worry about them. They're written out of the book by this point. Okay. So then the Ishmael's married to an Egyptian lady or something. Get them out of here. They're out of the book. Then the next part is still, we're still following Abraham. It's still chapter 21. And they're in some place that they moved to. And then some dude shows up who's like the guard or the captain of the guard. And he's like, hey, Abraham, what's going on? Why are you like, I need you to make some oaths here. You need to be a kind of a witness, right? To that, the fact that like, what's up with this well? And Abraham's like, oh, yeah. Well, first, I'm gonna sidestep this whole part where you asked me to make an oath to God and stuff. Instead, I'm going to rebuke you, and I'm going to gaslight you into being like, what do you mean the well? That's my well. I made that well, even though I just got here, kind of, sort of, and I'm old. Yeah. And so he's just like, oh, what? Huh? And then he's like, well, look at these goats. And look at these goats. I'm going to use these goats as a witness and more really like a bride. You're going to know these goats, and this well's mine now. And the guy's like, well, hey, all right, I'll take the goats. Or whatever, you know. Okay, yeah, we're done here. Go ahead, yeah, have the well. And so he plants some trees around the well. And I'm like, Abraham is a scammer. And this guy is not a good guy. And he even makes like a false witness. And like he breaks so many commandments later on, like, this guy is the prophet of God, and he's a liar, a cheat. He bears false witness. He lets other people covet his wife through lying. How does he honor anybody this way? Nah, whatever. So that's Genesis 21. Yeah. Yo, what's up? Took Wednesday off. So that's that. This time in Game of Thrones, I read Eddard. Ned 9. Yeah, nothing really happens in regards to progressing the intrigue plot, in so much that the Ned and Littlefinger go to a brothel. Okay? They learn that Robert has more bastard children, sure. But I think what's really happening in this chapter is that Littlefinger betrays Ned. Now, it's not depicted as that, but that's what I'm reading it as. Where they go to this brothel. Ned's already ready to leave, but Littlefinger gets him to go check some place for some nothing knowledge. And then on their way back, they basically they get ambushed and Ned loses some men, and he like I guess he breaks his leg, if I think I remember correctly, like an open wound fracture, which is really nasty. And Littlefinger just goes to go get the city guard or whatever. No, that this was a setup, and yeah, this is basically just another little part to the big scheme of what the story's about, I guess. But yeah, no, it felt like it pushed along the uh, let's raise the stakes without actually getting deeper into the intrigue. Yeah, I started a new book this time, Odyssey, Book One. So this one picks up where I guess a couple of years after where the Iliad stops, and even then, it's interesting that it drops you off in the middle of basically the story, in the middle of the Odyssey's action. Um, After this, I'm sure there's after this, it's going to basically go get wrapped up and end, right? But from this point of view, we have Odysseus lost at sea, stuck on Circe's island. Uh, Odysseus's kid and Odysseus's wife. We have Odysseus's kid who has to deal with the shame and has to deal with the suitors, basically pestering them and eating them out of house and home. And we have to deal with Odysseus's wife, who is, being beset by these suitors. And so we see the gods kind of like getting frustrated with what's happening here, and nobody wants to go down and the help uh, the people of Ithaca, I guess, from themselves, because Poseidon's like upset. Poseidon's upset with Odysseus having slain the Cyclops, and so they wait until Poseidon gets, he's got his attention otherwise somewhere else before they decide, okay, Athena's going to go down and help these people with their problem. And so Athena goes as a disguise. Athena goes disguised as an old friend of Odysseus and goes and talks to his kid saying, hey, well, where's Odysseus? What news do you have of him? Oh, wow, you don't really know? Well, I bet he's still alive. He's probably lost somewhere or being held captive, something. Why don't you do something about these suitors and tell them what's what? And then declare you're going to go out and look for your father. So, yeah, that's pretty much where this chapter ends. I don't know. I've already read this, so on the reread, let's see where it goes. I'm not very. I'm gonna love the fantasy, but I'm sure the political stuff is gonna be whatever. Not that there's there's a little bit of political stuff. It's mostly intrigue with the sailors and stuff like that, or dealing with soldiers or whatever, leading. Genesis 22 and 23. This one has to do with it's a pretty famous story, I think, where Abraham has to go and sacrifice Isaac, and there's no goat or there's no nothing, right? It's Abraham, Isaac, and two assistants that are going to go and make a sacrifice to the Lord. Suspicious. So they get all the way up there to the place where they're going to perform the sacrifice, just Abraham and Isaac, the servants left behind. And there's no goat, there's no provide. So Abraham has to sacrifice Isaac. But then at the last minute, God shows up and tells him, or an angel shows up and tells him, no, God provides, here you go, we were just testing you. Okay, what was the point of the test? So the God provides the goat. They sacrifice the goat. God's happy that uh, God's happy that Abraham passes the test, so that they get promised, the thing again about their children numbering the stars or whatever. And that's that chapter. What was the point of why does God need to do a some kind of loyalty test? This is pretty sick. And I guess, it makes for a good story and it's pretty convincing at first glance when you're, swept up in it. But like, no, this is if somebody that knows, supposed to know everything and supposed to be your father figure, be the leader of you spiritually, is telling you, hey, you gotta do these tests to prove yourself that you are loyal to him, that you'll listen to him. No. This is no, this is just madness, what it is. And also the emphasis of this was his only son. Like, we didn't just read about Ishmael. I mean, sure, Ishmael's a bastard son, and maybe what they mean is his only son that he cares about, or perhaps the only son he has with Sarah, or perhaps it's a lot of or perhaps. But no, if you just read it for what it says, this says this was his only kid, which is not true. So there you go. Genesis 23, Sarah dies. Okay, we're gonna bury her somewhere. Let's go bury her over here. Okay. And it's just Abraham pushing money into the hands of some people who are like, no, Abraham, you can have it. And it's like, no, how much is it worth? No, Abraham. But if we were to tell you how much, it'd be this much silver. Oh, okay. Here's your shekels. And it's like, I get it. This is a thing to like educate people to, actually do proper paperwork and get money into the hands of people so that there can be no claims of like, oh, well, my father never really sold it to you. It was a gift and now we're taking it back, right? Or some other stuff. This is just an example of legal work for the dead and buying stuff with silver of a certain kind or whatever of the day. And so, like, this is just legal, a way to show what you should do legally. Okay, this is more useful than the other stuff, even though the concept or the spirit of it is still do this in case anyone tries to make claims otherwise, so you can make your claim. Like, that's basically, this is all legal advice from a charlatan scammer con man telling other people this is how you can scam people. Or when you do something do something legitimate, this is how you can claim legitimacy. Nah, Abraham. Nah. Ooh, man, I'm falling behind on my reading a little bit, but I got enough done today to be caught up at least. Game of Thrones. Nothing like a split story narrative with different characters that make you really like realize which stories you prefer. Nothing really wrong with the Daenerys storyline. It's just not my favorite. I get it. It's like a Mongols invading China kind of thing with men behind their walls and a bunch of real rugged soldiers who could kill somebody, viciously and ruthlessly. And droves of them with their archery and their horses. Yeah, it's just the Mongols invading China. So, nothing wrong with it. It's just not my favorite. Not that the Ned storyline is very good either, but well, no, I wouldn't say not very good. I should say it's not, murder mystery, political intrigue isn't also a favorite of mine. So, but I mean, overall, it's still good. I don't mind. I don't mind the story. The story's good. The writing is the better part of it, and the characters pretty well fleshed out. I hate the ones I hate. I like the ones I like. It's just the ones in the middle. It's just the guys that I'm like whatever about. I kind of like. If I can't even remember or be bothered to remember their names, there's something about them. And it could just be simply a name that's just too exotic in my eyes. Like, yeah, well, I'm not going to go around remembering that name very well. It's a thing for me, I guess. I have trouble even remembering the names in the Greek stories. Speaking of the Greek stories, the Odyssey, book 2. And we see the way, I guess, a person should conduct themselves when they are being treated poorly and they are not being treated well within their their rights as a person or the position they have in society, which is kind of gross in a way. That's a thing. To me, everybody should, it's not about the position and how dare you. It should be more of, I'm a human being, how dare you. But, every man a king, I guess. So, Telemachus, is that the name of Odysseus' son? I should really write that down. Again, I mean, this is a reread. And I still I'm iffy on the name, but I think it's Telemachus. Telemachus, I think that sounds right. Telemachus. But yeah, no, he goes and he does what he should have done. But I guess now he's a man now, not a boy. So he's able to go and hold counsel and, lay his grievances in front of everybody. And now that it's all out in the open that this isn't right, how could you let your children do this kind of stuff? And that, I'm gonna go and find my father and I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z and be honorable, be a virtuous person with these actions that I'm gonna do. And the actions you guys are doing, I'm telling you to stop. And if you don't stop, then don't come crying when you mess around and you find out. I mean, yeah, it's the thing that once you've declared that you're going to take it into your own hands, if no one else is going to stop them, even if it's wrong, then it's still like they got a heads up. They were told, hey, stop trespassing on me, and they didn't. So. And the suitors, of course, are playing victim. That's the whole thing of it, is that like their customs and their stupid beliefs tie them to do this sort of thing. Maybe not as drastic as the suitors are, but it is a thing where it's like, okay, there's this rich lady and her husband's dead. What are we doing? We need this stuff to move around, and it's normal to claim that you're going to try to marry this woman just because. That's the thing in these times. It's gross. But that's what marriage is. And I guess this is kind of like a real romantic, lovey-dovey kind of story, because the way that, spoilers, I guess, the way that Odysseus is about Penelope, yeah, that's a romance. That's, they're not great people, but due to the circumstances, man, they're not so bad comparatively to the other ones, at least Penelope. But Odysseus, screw that guy. That guy's terrible. I mean, he's a lot better when he's not at war, I guess. And treats other people around him that are, cyclopses and nymphs and sea goddesses or whatever. I guess if you're not Trojan, hey, we can treat you at least with some dignity. Um, yeah, that's what this story is. That chapter's about. Holy Bible. We got Genesis 14. We have Genesis 24 and 25. Yeah. So 24 is all about Rebecca. How they got to find a suitable wife for Isaac. It can't be some Canaanite. God says, there's certain kinds of things, and that they got to go out amongst the places that Isaac or that Abraham's from. And so they go all the way back over there to Mesopotamia to find a wife for Isaac. And there's a bunch of prophecy with camels and waters and what have you. And ultimately, they go ahead and have Rebecca be his wife, which is his cousin. So we have more incestuous relationships to found this religion. Right? That's pretty gross, but you want to keep it all in the family. That's their thing, right? They're super invested in bloodlines. That's why else would they go on and on about who had who, what kid, and where did they go, and who did they do? More ways than one. That's pretty gross, but it's no surprise when afterwards you find out that Sarah's, or not Sarah, it's the same thing, right? Rebecca is now barren. She can't have any children. Wow, who would have thought an incestuous relationship, an incestuous union would bear no children for a while? But yeah, that's that. Genesis 25. So Sarah's been dead, and Isaac's already over there getting married. What should Abraham do? Just sitting around. You know what? You should just get married again. That's what you should do. And sire many bastards along with whoever the heck he's with. This old guy just going around having kids with concubines and just making a mess of stuff. That sounds very human. Yeah, that sounds like some desert nomad guy. So Abraham does all this stuff, and then before he dies, he has the mercy at least of sending off all these bastards away, so that Isaac, when Abraham dies, Isaac doesn't have to worry too much about all these children. And then Abraham does eventually just die. Great. Get out of here, Abraham. Suck. And so Ishmael shows up, and he's gonna help bury his father. Apparently, when the angel, whoever was saying in the last couple chapters that Isaac was his only son, well, here we have all these other children now. And, Ishmael before that. So, great. They bury Abraham in a cave in the plot of land with Sarah that he purchased. So that came back for that. Okay. And now Isaac and Rebecca are going to be the figureheads of this whole thing. And like I said, Rebecca can't have kids in this incestuous marriage. But then she prays to God. See, that's what you needed to pray to God to do the stuff that was already told that you should do. But if it wasn't until that, again, you have to prove yourself. And you have to humble yourself, I guess. Cool. So she prays, and then there's a prophecy. Like there's always prophecies. Cool, whatever. There's no validity in any prophecy, I think, once it's written down and we're looking back at it. And even if it was, it's coincidence, and who cares? I don't see any magic behind prophecy. It's just like magic and omens and a bunch of other stuff. There's nothing special for that. Anyways, they have twins. And the prophecy says that the older will, be a servant to the younger. And then the twins are born, one holding the ankle of the other. Well, whatever, however you want to settle the prophecy. But of course, there has to be ugliness. There has to be some kind of physical sign that something's wrong. It's not the fact that they're incestuous. It's the fact that look at that kid. That kid's ugly. He's all hairy and red. And yeah, nah. Isao, I think. Isao is going to be the poor child that's going to be, neglected and kicked around. And Jacob is his younger brother who's going to be plain and well intense. So that's the one that you need to look at. That's going to be the up and comer. That's the prophesized one. And really, the only kindness they say is that Isaac likes his child Esau because he puts food on the table. But Rebecca she only likes Jacob. That's kind of like, what kind of family life is this? These people are terrible. Like, I guess if your father's Abraham, you're not a good father. What the hell, Isaac? You only like your kid because he puts food on the table? What the hell is this? And so, of course, the kid is like growing up as best he can, I guess. And then the next thing we know, they're older, and Esau is out there hunting or doing whatever he's doing. And he comes home tired, feeling like he's going to faint from hunger. And, what you should do with your brother who's coming in struggling from the day, you should basically have him sell off his inheritance for some food. That's what you should do, because the guy's going to, you feel like he's going to die. He's going to faint. It's so bad. And what you should do is to be like, hey, look, this is a great opportunity for a business investment. You give me all your birthright and your stuff that's entitled to you, and I'll give you something to eat. That's not a family, man. That's terrible. I can see why, because, okay, Esau does. They even change his name again and call him something else, like the fainting one or whatever, of just giving them names. And then he says, okay, well, whatever, I'll sell you all this stuff, just getting something to eat, I'm gonna die. And then Esau says, screw my birthright, screw these people. Yeah, screw those people. But the fact that's all we need to be like, yeah, no, this is fine. This is how you should treat people. This is the kind of thing you should do in a family. These are family values. Nah. And I know Esau's gonna be, he's ugly and hairy and weird. This is weird. But I guess normal for the time. That's if you have to keep saying this is normal for the time, and no, there's something weird about it. And yeah, no, it's not gonna go well. I already know it's not gonna go well for this poor kid. Good Monday morning. So I am late on these reports, but it is what it is. Sometimes you sleep in on Sunday. So let's talk about what I read days ago now. The 5th chapter of Bran in A Game of Thrones. Yeah, and this one, the environment and the excitement is pretty much on the nose. This stuff is kind of you can feel the tension. It's electric in a way, but we don't know where it's gonna drop. And Bran being handicapped and being disabled, and yet still wanting to be normal. I think that's relatable for people who can, kind of experience that. And they just want to be a part of what they were before. Bran knew a life before, and he's going to try to get used to the life after his injury. And at the same time, those are new struggles that maybe he didn't really realize before. And a lot of the stuff in this chapter was just bumbling idiots. The people that are in charge of the Starks, like to back them up, to be their bodyguards or whatever, they no, they feel like bumbling idiots. And maybe it gives a little bit of a, they're doing this on purpose. They're kind of testing them, or they're kind of like hoping that something will happen. So yeah, a little treasonous, a little, I don't know exactly where we're going with this. And at the end of it, they pick up a new body, right? Some new person entered the story. A wildling, some, person from beyond the wall. I kind of remember them a little bit from the TV show, but like I know she's gonna become kind of like a thorn, where Rob's gonna try to bring her in, and she's gonna try to. I don't know if it's gonna be with Rob or if it's gonna be with Bran, but her stories and her stuff are gonna kind of chip away a little bit at that stoic Stark, that hard, cold Stark blood. So I'm excited, still really excited to read more Game of Thrones. And kind of like how it was with Game of Thrones, this is a reread. Whereas Game of Thrones, I had seen the first season, and I don't know exactly. It's been a long time since I'd seen it, so there's still a lot of like holes in my memory. But certain things I kind of know were going to happen. This I just read a couple of months ago, so it's kind of interesting to read a different translation of it. I read the Fagles version before, and now this Butler, the Simon Butler translation that I'm reading here. It kind of like, oh, okay. I just read it and glazed over it, as it, sometimes my attention kind of is foggy. But with this one, let's try to get the name right. Telemachus? No. Ptolemaeus? No. Telemachus. Telemachus, I think, is the correct pronunciation. So Telemachus goes with, I don't remember Athena's name, but it's Athena. Some person Athena posing as some friend of Odysseus. I want to say Ulysses, but Odysseus. I want to go with more Greek names if I can, but I'm going to get those wrong. And they're going to go and see Nestor. So they go to Pylon, I think that's the name. And when they get there, there's a big ox ritual thing going on, a hecatomb, a big ritual sacrifice to Poseidon. And they follow the rites and rituals. This chapter is a lot of rites and rituals and doing stuff for the gods. And okay, I remember the Odyssey being more interesting because it was about how kind of some people do their festivals and some more of the Greek culture from the ancient times, whereas the Iliad is about war and stuff and people's pride. It's more of a personal story. And this one is more about like daily life or rituals. So I think that's cool. And when we get to the fantasy stuff, that's really good. That's what I'm, excited to read. But again, this is rituals, customs. Like they ask Telemachus to come and sit and eat and dine with them for their feast before they even ask them for their name or what they're doing there. And even afterwards, they're like, okay, so once the rituals is done and they've had their drink, they're chilling. They asked Telemachus and like, so are you guys like pirates or something? You guys gonna pillage the seven seas, or what are you guys doing here? And so they tell him, hey, we're here to find any kind of information for his father, right, for Odysseus. And yeah, we get a little bit more information. Like I don't remember this in the other reading, and maybe it was just I glazed over it again. but they're like, oh, this is what happened to this guy and this person, and how Agamemnon and Menelaus were of two minds, and how they were like kind of squabbling over what to do now after the sacking of Troy. Some people just wanted to go home, and some people wanted to, wait a little bit and do more rituals and stuff. And this happened there, and this happened here. So yeah. And then Athena actually shows some magic powers in front of Nestor and Telemachus. And it's like, wow, okay, the gods are actually kind of tipping their hand now that it's not about war so much. But it's about, and maybe it's the whole thing, right? Of like Athena really favors the house of Odysseus. So, but let's see, was there anything else that happened this chapter? No, they're off to go see Menelaus in Sparta. Get on a chariot and they head out. I can't wait till we get to see more about their adventures, more about Odysseus's adventures, because Telemachus is just gonna do a little bit of stuff. I think it's not as exciting. In the Bible, Genesis, we got 26 and 27. So Genesis 26, it's kind of weird that like the story kind of repeats itself again with Isaac and the stuff that he does. And it's like, dude, you really either learn from your dad a lot of these techniques, a lot of this kind of politic, or the story just kind of like repeats itself. Like you guys, the scribes and stuff are kind of like, did this, I guess. We just kind of lumped it in. We heard of these stories and we just got to put them in any kind of order we can get. And so it feels very much like that, where they're trying to make it all like puzzle pieces, trying to make it work, even though some parts don't link up correctly or they have missing little links. And so it's just an image that we're trying to, I mean, it's Genesis, right? This is supposed to be the origin myths. So I can expect that. A lot of this stuff is kind of fuzzy and it's just, those kind of links. But yeah, like the lying, the freaking stuff with his sister supposedly and his not his wife, and the like wannabe contract making and like tempting of people. Nah, Isaac, don't be like Abraham. Come on, man. And like this dude's doing this and he's already got kids. Like you're a grown man, Isaac. But Esau and Jacob's got to deal with this. Like at this point, I think at the end of this, Esau gets two wives. Like these people, your babies are getting married, man. What are you doing? And I understand, like there's feasts, there's famines. I mean, and they're moving around, and it's tough, ancient nomadic times. So like, yeah, but it's bad. It's culty. Nah, guys, these people aren't heroes. I mean, they are what they are, a product of their time, and they're like founding fathers of this religion. Many religions, so they get those flowers. There's reverence for that, but their actions are terrible. No, it's very culty, very culty. And then Genesis 27. More treachery. These people are treacherous. Treacherous is I think the word, because like Jacob is going to wear some hide and try to play himself off as Esau, where Isaac tells his son to go out and hunt for him because he's going blind and he doesn't know when his time is going to come. It could be any minute. And so he wants to have some blessings and stuff. I'm not exactly sure what the blessings are supposed to do. He's already given up his birthright, which I think is like inheritance. And blessing, I think, might be the, like, I guess, some kind of prophecy or omen or some kind of boon to ensure the future. I think that's what's kind of happening with this. And so Esau takes off to go do that. And Rebecca plots with Jacob to go and lie to Isaac, and then they go and they trick him, and Jacob gets the blessing, that's supposed to be meant for Esau. Then Esau shows up and he's upset because, well, he got robbed and they lied to his father and all this stuff. And so, like, Esau goes and begs him for some kind of boon, some kind of blessing. And it's basically like the blessing to war, a blessing to, I guess, vengeance. And like, that's not very much of a blessing at all. It's more of a burden again. And so, no, these people just like, if honestly, Esau should have just packed up after he got, you know, robbed by, robbed by Isaac, not Isaac, when he gets robbed by Jacob and Rebecca, which is like, Rebecca's your mother. It's not some kind of bastard child thing going on like what happened with Ishmael. This is your mom, and she does not like you. And that's the kind of family that these people have? No. And, you know, I guess it's relatable. Some people have terrible family lives. It is a little bit like, you know, we can't win them all, right? Sometimes you were born and that's your lot. That's your lot in life. So honestly, I think it would have been better had Esau just, once he got burned by his family, to have just renounced him, took off. I mean, he can survive on his own. He knows how to hunt, and just go be his own thing. Like, never come back. No, forget Isaac, forget Rebecca, and definitely Rebecca. I mean, forget Jacob, and definitely Rebecca. No, these people are terrible. And yeah, that's just, I mean, like, Rebecca tries to pull some stuff at the end to be like, no, give me the blame. Don't put it on Jacob. I'm the one who's conspiring. No, that's not how this works, right? It's the whole thing, like the old Mexican saying of like, who do you blame? The person who uses the dagger on the animal or the person who holds it down? Like, you blame them both. There's no, like, you just put all the blame on one. So no, these people are like, this is the foundation for stuff. I'm sure like this stuff has to happen so that the Israelites have to leave, and how like they get taken as slaves and stuff, and all this stuff. It's and it, you know, maybe it's them just trying to seed some stuff in so that when stuff happens, they can say, "See, this is why it happened because they did these things." But like, again, this is supposed to be some religious stuff. And to me, it's putting your foundation on some really weak stuff, building castles in the sand kind of stuff. No, man. Well, that's what I read for the last week, and I've got some more reading to do today. But from here on out, I'm gonna try some different stuff. I'm gonna try maybe a different microphone. Maybe I'll film myself and do some book reviews or something. Try something different. I'm also thinking of recording them, and when I do upload it on Sunday still, to upload it back to back, and such that my Game of Thrones part, like book review stuff or journaling, will be just Game of Thrones for, you know, however long, and then I edit it so that the next stuff will just be the Odyssey for the week, and then, you know, at the end it'll be the Bible, so that on review, because, you know, I'm going to be watching this in the future to remind myself what I said and how my opinions were, and if I changed at all growing up, or I guess maturing, as if someone my age can mature still, but still, yeah. I'm thinking of mixing it up a little bit and seeing how that goes. So here's to the future, guys. Later.